They had relatives out there. And it really was good for Phil.
In L.A., this pint-sized, panic-stricken kid seemed withdrawn, except when he played a guitar given to him on his bar mitzvah.
It was said that he had the ears of a dog. Even as a teenager, he could recognize, without seeing the music on a sheet, he could know how to play it just by hearing it. People would be amazed when he would pick up a guitar.
Phil started writing songs and joined the Fairfax High School Music Club. By the age of 16, he was forming bands and playing jazz in local clubs and coffee houses.
There were jazz artists we really liked. I knew he liked Barney Kessel and Howard Roberts. He appreciated good guitar players.
Phil's mom and sister constantly called my dad and said, "We got this child prodigy here. He's really great. He loves you, and he's a guitar player, and he's a great musician. Would you just meet him and talk to him?" And finally, they wore him down.
Phil graduated Fairfax High School in June of 1957. That fall, he enrolled in Los Angeles City College, where he began studying court reporting.
Philip was studying court reporting because his mother wanted to make sure he had a career. Every Jewish mother wants their kid to have a job and to have a profession.
But Phil was still obsessed with music, and his passion was not limited to jazz.
He became obsessed with Wagner. It was the sound and the totality of Wagner's music and the power of it he was obsessing about and holding it up as a model for himself.
It was the late 1950s. Rock music was in its infancy. Elvis was young, Buddy Holly was alive, and teenagers were running home after school to catch American Bandstand. Phil wanted a piece of it, bad. He formed a rock band called the Teddy Bears, and one night, still tortured by the pain of his father's death, Phil was jolted out of bed by the image of the epitaph on his father's tombstone. It read, "To know him was to love him." A song came to Phil from those haunting words.
I was doing my homework, as my mother wanted one night, and the phone rang. And it was Phil, and he says, "Listen to this." And he plays me, cupped it, with the guitar, and he's cupping, and he played me "To Know Him Is to Love Him."
Phil bought all the time he could afford at Gold Star Studio. He aggressively stacked vocals and instruments, making the sound bigger and fuller than had ever been done before. "To Know Him Is to Love Him" shot to #1 on the record charts, selling 1.4 million copies.
It was something very different. This sweetness, this innocence that we all loved, that we grabbed onto immediately.
But the euphoria was short-lived. Even though the Teddy Bears recorded more songs, there were no more hits. Phil quickly moved on. His passion for music and success had intensified, and he dumped the Teddy Bears. At the age of 17, he had tasted the glory of making a hit record. Now Phil Spector was ready to fry much bigger fish.
Next week on Connections.
In 1958, at the age of 17, Phil Spector took his first record, "To Know Him Is to Love Him," to the top of the charts. He also took music to a new level.
He would know he wanted to take sound out of a speaker and re-record it and run it through an echo chamber and then re-record the track and lay that on top of the first track. These were things that not even 35, 40-year-old producers were doing back then.
Phil was determined to do even more. He went to work for Trey Records in L.A. It was Phil's skill in the studio that really impressed Trey owner Lester Sill.
He was an industry heavy, big shot, big, powerful guy. Spector just won him over. He just charmed the pants off the guy.
Phil put together a group called the Spectors 3. He couldn't score a hit record with the group, but he did get the girl. Phil eventually married lead vocalist Annette Mirar.
Annette Mirar is and was a very sharp, and witty person with an incredible mind, and he found a match and a challenge